Okay. So this is Super Mario Bros Remastered. I was doing a little bit of a playthrough of it, and I was just having a lot of thoughts about it, and I just wanted to get them down somewhere. I went through some of the settings here. I wanted to test some of the modern stuff too to see if I liked it. So like background particles, that's fun. HUD style, I really actually super enjoy the modern HUD. Rainbow effect modern, I was a little unimpressed with it honestly. I also realized that once you start the campaign, you can't really change a lot of the other settings, so that's the thing. Like what if classic also looks lame and I'm just misremembering? But for most of this, I think I should probably go classic. Yeah, I think with that out of the way, I just want to get into it because I want to, I just want to get started. I pretty much support like most of the decisions that have been made regarding this project here. All of it's pretty top-notch stuff. One thing I will say, the backgrounds aren't always winners. I do really appreciate having like the different themes, obviously, like the forest background theme always looks sick. I think that's just the one from Super Mario Maker. And that's the thing, I would assume that they would just do that for all of them, but I'd be surprised to learn that this background is in Super Mario Maker, because it does feel a little bland. But now that I'm thinking about it, now that I mentioned the one from the forest level, that might actually be the case. They might be reusing these. Also, I don't think I'm going to do the warps. I don't think I want to finish this in necessarily 5 minutes, because I think I've done it that way before. I've never played through every world of this game, though. And that's the thing that I don't think people would consider that very blasphemous, necessarily. For some people, it probably is a logical conclusion thing of like, oh, well, if you know how to beat the game faster, then why would you just do that every time? But then I imagine there's, you know, I imagine the vast majority of experiences with this game, especially like when it released, you know, at the time of releases, you know, kind of doing it piecemeal. And then, oh my god, the warp is something you actually get to discover instead of reading about it in fucking Nintendo Power Magazine when you were like 12, and then when you play the game as like a just experiment to see what the past was like, you're like, oh shit, oh yeah, that thing, I remember the warp. Like imagine discovering something like that for the first time. That had to feel crazy. You know, no wonder that's where the magic would come from, right? Like these are still fun to play, but you know, when people talk about that transformative, and of course everybody I'm sure has those experiences with games, you know, from any era they grew up in. I can only imagine what like, you know, fucking Breath of the Wild felt like if you played it at 6, like I played Ocarina of Time, you know. Oh. But I'm sorry, I think I completely lost my train of thought. There's backgrounds, I guess. This one's good. I like this one. I do enjoy the like, when the bricks fade out into darkness, like the lines just end. I always think that's such a fun little texture. Sorry, Bowser and I are gonna dance here for a little bit because I've never been particularly good at this fight. I'll be honest. Like it's one of those things where it's like, it's not designed in a way that's like super readable in my opinion. The movement's kind of random. You know, it's not like, it's definitely not the modern structure where they give you like a pattern to follow and you hit them 3 times. Which honestly, that's actually kind of a bit of a revelation for me, honestly, right now. The idea that like, you know, boss fight patterns, you know, even and especially maybe in Mario games, are such like an established given. Sorry, it's distracted. Oh shit, Starman. See, it doesn't look that interesting. I thought rainbow would be like, holy shit, they're gonna give it particle effects and go through every color of the rainbow, but it's just like mostly blue, and I don't really understand why that was the choice. I fucking love his little crouch. The fact that small Mario can crouch. Again, I don't want to totally look like a poser here if I got this wrong, but I don't think in the original you can do that. Because you didn't need to. I just totally gave up there. I felt the decision in my brain to be like, no, focus on talking. Focus on finishing your sentence. Let this kill you. I don't know why I get so many unfounded worries and like fears when I watch trailers. There are a lot of things about the trailer of this game I was like, I don't know. But then, you know, actually going through it and playing, it's great. It's amazing. All doubts I had, right, are kind of... But yeah, that was one of the things. I saw the level themes. I saw the level themes and the colored pipes, and those for some reason just threw me off a little bit, because they felt like I was worried at the idea of those. Are we still getting checkpoints? Oh, the fucking game does have checkpoints, but the flag isn't there. It's not like a thing you hit, and that's why they also have the option, right, to have it give you a mushroom. Okay, that's interesting though too, that this is the classic setting, and they still show it to you with that little icon above your head. I also didn't even necessarily grok that was a flag the first few times I saw it. Like, this is the first time I'm recognizing what it actually does, but even before I was like, what is that? It looked like a chess pawn. The little chess piece, the pawn. We'll see if we see it again. I'm gonna have to time that. Yeah, see, because it's just the one color, so it kind of blends in with its own shadow. Can you go? Jesus. There's something I was gonna mention. But I guess I'm quickly realizing that is finishing most of the thoughts I'm gonna have here is gonna fall by the wayside, because keeping track of the things you're saying while you're playing a video game, who the fuck would have thunk, is actually pretty damn difficult. I always heard that a lot growing up, you know, because I grew up, I fucking loved watching early YouTube Let's Plays of, you know, Nintendo games and shit, and they would always talk about, you know, shit like the commentator's curse. It'd be like, you know, like, people are always yelling at me for, like, missing obvious stuff, but it's like, you guys don't understand, like, how difficult it is to separate the parts of your brain that are required for speaking and also playing video games. And that's the thing, like, I didn't believe, sorry, I didn't, like, not believe them, you know, because I feel like that would be a shitty assumption if you've never done it before. Be like, actually, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and this is easy as fuck. But I kind of always had my doubts a little bit. You do surprise yourself sometimes with the times that it's, like, easy, right? When you're not really thinking about it and a whole level goes by, and it basically just felt like you were having a conversation. Like, you know, if you've ever played games with friends, they're like, how hard could it be? Like, it's hard, but I don't necessarily know all the ways it's hard. And so I'm kind of excited and interested to see, learn more about that. I have a star. Why am I... Worst recorded gameplay of 2025. Why did I run away from the Koopa while I had a star? Snow level is, unfortunately, a little monochrome. I think that's just kind of how it has to be. To be, I guess, visually distinct from the other worlds, but then still operating within the limited palette, right? Like, you gotta... If you've only got, like, 6 colors to work with, you're gonna have to have, like, a purple world at some point. You know, you're just gonna have to bite that bullet. Oh, that's interesting. Did I reach high enough to just hit that, or did it... I felt like I almost clipped into the block there. That was strange. Whoa, okay. That's another kind of interesting thing. The idea of, like, you know, you've got the star timer, and your only indication of when it's about to run out is just your familiarity with, you know, how long it takes after the song ends. Which is kind of weird and fuzzy and strange. Because you would think, you know, if you're not going to give people that modern, like, wah, 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 at the very ends that kind of helps you time the finish, you'd think at the very least you would just try and match it with the end of the song. And if the difference is only going to be about a second, it's a bit hard for me to imagine that, you know, that much advantage would have been lost if you shortened it by just that little bit. I think this is where I stopped originally. Yeah, the forest level. So that was something I was going to mention. I don't necessarily enjoy all the new music from Super Mario Maker 2. Like, a lot of it... This theme, though, I actually really... I like the forest theme because it at least sounds different to the other ones. Most of the stuff that they made for Super Mario Maker 2 honestly just sounded like weird rhythmic remixes of, you know, the same fucking song. But yeah, most of them, it's like, I can't necessarily bring it to mind right now, but the one that goes like, bop, 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 bop. It just doesn't, it's like deconstructing the original Mario theme, but not in a way that sounds like a new song. It's just kind of like a really weird version of the existing, it's got like a weird kind of energy to it, I don't know. Like, I would have preferred a more original composition, and I kind of, you know, my belief is that if they had, you know, I don't know if it was a dev resources thing or a cartridge space thing, but if they had, in the original Super Mario Bros., had more music, I would have imagined that the other songs would have sounded pretty different. They wouldn't have just remixed the one theme, you know? Oh, let's go. Because it didn't have a chance to become the iconic theme yet, you know? It almost felt like that's what they had to do when they made Super Mario Maker 2, to make it sound like Mario, because all anybody knows classic Mario to sound like is that one song, basically. And then, you know, the castle theme, maybe the underwater theme. But, you know, I think... Oh, I just threw myself into a warp zone. I forgot that was a warp zone. Okay, I guess we're going to 6. I'm not going to wait out the clock. Alright, well we skipped most of World 4 and 5. I guess that's just what happens. That's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I wanted to see a bit more of the game, but you know, there's always next time for a true full playthrough. Not that it makes it, you know, I guess it's authentic. Nobody's first playthrough was like perfect by any metric. And I think, you know, a lot of the discovery and just the experience of that in and of itself is probably what makes it interesting. Does this guy throw more frequently, by the way? Because he's much more annoying than I remember. I did one, yeah, that was one classic deviation that I allowed myself, is I wanted to see, because this just felt like such a more, I mean, Lakitu was already annoying. He was okay if you figured out kind of how to deal with him and his timing and stuff, but it's not like he wasn't an annoying addition to the game. And so I was like, hey, you know, if it was intended to work this way, then maybe it's kosher. But at the same time, like, intended is such a strange phrase in game development, I feel, because there are so many different people who work on it. And like, you think about, you know, you can say it's a bug for Lakitu to drop them like that, but the thing is, like, this went through, you know, how much development time did this game go through where they were seeing him do that and didn't think to change it, you know? It felt close enough to their vision that it wasn't really noticed, you know? It's not like some rounding error shows up in a glitch after waiting 10 hours, right? Like, it's a very immediate, oh, hey, this guy throws things in a different way than we were expecting. But, you know what? Like, either they recognized that it didn't work that way, but they were like, hey, we like this better. Or they kind of, it didn't even really occur to them that it was supposed to drop in a diagonal. And that's the other thing, like, supposed to. You know, are we basing that off of, you know, did Miyamoto and other designers draw out the behavior and then give it to the programmers? And then, you know, was the first iteration of the Lakitu programming, did it have that bug in it, right? And then if so, from certain perspectives, a lot of people on that team probably never intended for Lakitu to throw a diagonal because they never even saw, you know, that initial design document or something. But then, like, you think about the people making this game, like, how would they know, you know, if it was intended, unless there was some remnant of it in the files? And so maybe it is a situation where Lakitu used to throw them diagonally, and then at some point in development, somebody added, like, something incorrect somewhere, and it broke it. Which, honestly, now that I'm saying it, sounds a lot more reasonable. And just with my own experience with hobbyist game development, you know, that happens and then it wouldn't be that hard, I think, to extrapolate if you were making a, you know, remake projects. What the fuck is it, 40 years down the line? Sorry, by the way. Not to give myself a little credit, I don't think that's the best respawn place. Maybe I'd have been a bit more prepared for that had I turned on the checkpoint flags. That's another, I guess, benefit to having those be visible to the player. Because, yeah, it is one of those things, too, where if you're not giving them a signal that, like, hey, here's why you're respawning here. Like, imagine this is the first time you've ever played a video game, right? Imagine this is back when this shit came out. You don't even know what a checkpoint is. And so, like, you respawn and you're, like, a little further in the level, and you're like, what? And it almost makes it, especially when there's no visual signifier, it can kind of feel like just a cacophony of unmemorable, like, I think it contributes to the lack of memorability of a lot of Mario's individual levels, because you're going through them in such, like, when you die, you start in a different place and you don't necessarily know why. And then the third level you play looks exactly like the first level you play, looks exactly like the 10th level you play. Ooh. And so by the end of it, you know, you got through the game, but, like, how well can you actually remember the individual experiences and the individual worlds? Do you know which one you liked the most, you know? And I think, honestly, all you really need to do to help establish those memories and, like, create those kinds of actual new memorable experiences really is just like a palette swap. You know, this is cool, I love the vines, this is awesome. I love this, actually. Something about that feels very classic NES to me. And I'm not just talking about, obviously, the graphical limitations. But yeah, I think it comes with music, and it comes with, you know, a different level palette, some new enemies, obviously, and then, you know, different design challenges. You know, very modern Mario stuff, right? Where you introduce something in a level, and you build on it, and then you twist it. What's the fucking Game Maker's Toolkit formula he was talking about? Okay, this is bad. We're good, though, actually. We're sick. We're fucking epic at Mario. Okay, that feels like a bit of a redemption. Throw your shit, asshole. Actually, you know what? They're not that bad to deal with if you do it like that. I have discovered the strategy for dealing with Hammer Brothers. Maybe I'll be able to discover the strategy for 1 block wide pits soon too. You know what though? If you can't get the first one, it is a little sketchy. Okay, we're good. We're out. So this has a mushroom in it, but hey, can you fuck off? Would they chase you? What the fuck? Why? did they always do that? Fine, I don't want the mushroom then. Damn. Bro was hungry. Oh, the stars too. I mean, obviously I noticed them, but I didn't necessarily get a chance to like acknowledge them. That was another, when I talk about the trailer experience being a little different from the gameplay experience, the particle effects was another thing that I was a little, I don't know, not exactly sold on. They seemed a little overdone, to be honest. Like, just a little too much on the screen at once. Like, you know, like the fucking lava sparks in the Bowser Castle levels. Like, they just have, like, it's a very uniform distribution of, like, these little embers floating up from the screen. When the way they do it in the modern games is usually, like, it's really collected around the lava and maybe, like, a different, brighter, hotter color. And then as it fizzles up, it changes how much it wobbles back and forth. And then it maybe fades in opacity a little, and it doesn't rise that much. And then, like, you got the fucking between the platforms. That's where you get some, like, ambient fucking glowing red light coming up and, like, mixing with the smoke coming off the embers and stuff. And you know, obviously that's way too detailed for the NES remake version, but, you know, maybe with these limitations, it's not an effect that comes across as well. But then that's a given, isn't it? Because the graphics aren't, I mean, they're just objectively lower fidelity. But all this is to say, I mean, it's crazy that I took that long to explain it, because I was getting to the point of, like, and then when I played the game, that concern vanished. And it wasn't for the reasons I was talking about. It was because when you're playing a game, I think your attention is so focused, like, around either your player character or your environment, that you're not really looking at the whole screen at the whole time as much as you are when you're, that's fucking trippy, as much as you are when you're, like, watching a trailer or watching someone else play. And so, in the same way, I guess, that it's easier to miss something that kind of looks obvious. Fuck, I have not been paying attention. It's also easier to not kind of be bothered by the fact that there are so many, you know, things on the screen. I will say this isn't necessarily my favorite kind of level design. And obviously, it's not much of a secret why, I'd imagine. It's just kind of like, pick a path. But that was another thing too. That's another thing about classic games, and I think it especially rears its head in the classic Mario games, is the way that, you know, I think it's good to make a game difficult, right? But the way that we approach making things difficult now, I think we have a lot greater understanding of the different kind of, like, categories and the different effects that you can create. Like, most of it's a conversation about fairness, right? And, like, I think the approach early on is maybe a bit naive, right? In that they're saying, like, okay, well, we want to make the game difficult to make it interesting, so let's do anything we can to make the game difficult, right? And so that includes making, sure, interesting, difficult level design, but it also includes things like, hey, pick one of these 3 paths, and if you don't get the right one, you're here for 10 minutes, you know? Or it's, hey, let's hide this secret, obscure, secret thing that you need for progression in this one area. I don't know. That's not necessarily a Mario thing, but, you know, or in Super Mario World, even on the SNES, there's that one level where in order to get the dragon coin, you're dropping down these levels of coins while the P-switch goes, and then you've got to time the fucking P-switch so that you land on the blocks at the point that you wanted. And it's like, that's such a crazy thing to expect people to just do. Or the sunken ship level with the ghosts that disappear and reappear in, I think, different places. It just feels like so messy and generally kind of maybe not ill-considered, but just, like, again, a little naive in the ways that, like, some difficulty feels more fair than other difficulty. And in some ways, when you rely a bit too much on one kind of difficulty, you know, it can really hamper somebody's experience to the degree that they feel like their time is, like, being fundamentally disrespected, right? Unless, of course, it's a rage game, right, where that's the point. And that's why I love fucking design and games and stuff, is because you really can make the point of a game anything. And that's why we have so many different cool genres and stuff now. So where, like, I can definitely talk about why, you know, unfair design might not necessarily have a place in Mario, and I think, you know, Nintendo would agree with me on that. But then, like, it can totally be absolutely the right thing for Jump King and fucking getting over it and all that jazz. Ugh. It's even the fucking... Woo! Oh my goodness. I'm not... Those were not good plays, but I got very lucky. Woo! That one was an okay play. That also relates to another discussion that's, I mean, age-olds, so maybe not that interesting to get into, but just like the idea of like a live system. Like, it's such a popular opinion for people to be like, oh yeah, lives were just a way for people to, you know, drain your coins in the arcades or make, you know, short little, you know, 10 kilobyte NES cartridges last a bit longer, or to make you rent them from the game store more often. Did they get it? Did game publishers get fucking kickback from rentals? I don't remember if that was a thing. I don't know. Oh yeah. So like, people have these ideas about like what the live systems are supposed to do, and like say are supposed to do as if there's only ever one thing, right? But, you know, again, you know, like any mechanic in games, it's very situational. It's game by game. You know, it's probably the wrong choice for a lot of games, and it's probably the right choice for a lot of other ones, and a lot of that depends on your implementation as well. You know, like I personally think that live systems are interesting because they test consistency. They don't just test whether you can get through an encounter once and then never have to deal with it again. It's like, can you get this through this entire series of challenges, you know, through practice and repetition? I did not think he was going to throw that many. It basically extends the challenge across. Like, you get the challenge of the individual levels, just like you would in something like Celeste, right? But then you also get this meta challenge over the course of like 4 levels. And your performance in the first level, like, depending on whether you can get a mushroom or a fire flower, you know, will improve your performance on not only the second level, but even the third and fourth levels with this, like, butterfly effect of, like, your overall performance. I think that's such an interesting way to build the game, because if you do so badly in general that you can't get past the third level and you have to go back to the first, like, you know, it's not just about getting better at the third level, it's also about getting better at the first, and then the second, and then you can come to the third level with more advantages. And I think that's such an interesting gameplay loop. And I feel that's super, super right for the Mario series in general, and like platforms and stuff. Now, what I will also say, you know, when people deride live systems, they're usually talking about the modern games. And that's where I think it's an issue of implementation, right? I think, like, modern live systems in modern Mario games are really broken. Like, they don't even feel considered, to be honest. It's almost a perversion of the way that they work, that they were supposed to work, where you can get 12 in the first fucking level, and the second level has an exploit where you can get fucking triple crown, which is just like that's almost why I use the word perverted, because it's like, what are we doing? Why? What is this for? Why do I need this special little indicator that I've got 1,000 fucking lives, so I've effectively proven that they will never matter for the rest of my experience in this game? Like lives they almost exist for their own sake. Like, it's just something that, games have this, and it's good when you have a lot of them. Or it feels good to get them, so I guess we'll just maximize the player's ability to get them. And then maybe they still sort of feel like they're losing something when they lose one for dying, but it's not ultimately a huge punishment. So I guess from that perspective, you know, it does make a lot more sense when you think about, you know, if they're trying to appeal to a casual audience and they're just trying to maximize, like, positive emotions, right? Then yeah, lives being something in the game that you can just get, and you can just get a lot of them, I guess is serviceable enough. And they might not honestly always be going for that kind of consistent meta challenge that I was talking about earlier, which is maybe a little heady for, I guess, what they were trying to get out of the modern Mario experience. But again, like, I don't think that necessarily changes my opinion that I think it, by and large, has been a negative inclusion, the way that they've implemented live systems in their modern games. They don't feel as interesting. And the reason I want to get into that is that's why I always I feel a bit frustrated when people just write off old systems like Lives as just coin sinks or just trying to make the game harder for no reason. Like, it's easy to say that because obviously it sucks when you're forced to go back and replay stuff. I think if you're trying to be honest about and look at games holistically and like what they can actually do and what they should be trying to do, each individual one on each individual case, like, you know, there's so much that you are afforded in the Live system to like play with and make interesting. I think my favorite example is if anyone's ever played The End Is Nigh. I don't know why I said that like it's an obscure it's an Edmund McMillan 2D platformer. Of course it's popular and loved, but that's fucked up that can happen, by the way. It's cool that I'm invincible, but fuck you for scaring me half to death. Just make it not appear when you're I don't know, whatever. Reset the timer or something. Oh yeah, End Is Nigh. Yeah, so it's basically, you know, there's no live system in the game for like 90% of it, and you're also collecting every screen has these little collectible tumors, they're called, just little black blobs. And over the course of the game, I'm like, of course I'm gonna collect every fucking one that I see or can find, because that's how I like to go through those games. And then, yeah, when you get to the final level, I think when you go for a specific ending, one of the harder ones, I think, that's when you unlock the last world. And then when you enter that world, that was a fucking cool twist. Your tumor count becomes your life counter. And every time you die, you lose one. And that fucking twist, the emotions I felt when I realized that was what was happening, was a unique experience for that game and no other game. You know, like that, and that by itself I think is special. You know, just by the virtue of being unique. Am I going in circles again? Sorry. Yeah, and I was like, that was kind of my impetus to be like, how could the introduction of a live system in a video game just made me feel like the stakes went up and, you know, things are more dangerous, you know, and I feel more stressed out, but also much more engaged going through this final level of this game. Like, it was a genuinely transformative experience, and here it fucking is. Yeah, I'm stupid. I genuinely can't believe I walked past this a million times in a row. I guess I was really focused on what I was trying to say. But yeah, and that's the thing, like, for that game, that felt like exactly the right choice. So how could you ever say that live systems don't have a place in modern games? That's the thing that makes me frustrated, was people say, like, you know, lives are a deprecated mechanic from an old period of game design where we have completely different sensibilities. It's like, no, like, anything that you can do in a game, anything that you can put in a game and make a player interact with can be used for good or for ill. It's just about, you know, implementation and consideration and design. Okay, so we know where to go from here. I think I might have already skipped it once, but we know. I'm gonna fucking pay attention. That's the thing that scares me. I think when I'm scared when I jump, it's gonna like trigger my hitbox, and then I'm gonna... Am I stupid? What the fuck? Wait, it's not the blue one. Is it the blue one? What have I been doing for the past 15 minutes? It is the blue one. What? It's a good thing I turned on the extra lives. God damn. Alright, let's actually try and focus on this level as if the game is actually an integral part of the experience we're trying to have here. Good lord. I will, in my defense, I wasn't necessarily expecting the momentum that I ended up getting off of that jump. That is one thing I think, too, that holds the original Super Mario Bros. Back just a little bit, too, is the physics, you know. It's genuinely, when you look into, like, old game, like Atari-era game development and shit, like, it is genuinely such a revelation that the original Super Mario Bros. Plays like it does. Not even just in like a mechanical sense, but like in a design sense, in a like moving through the world sense, and like feeling like you're on an adventure sense. You know, I don't think it can be overstated. But when you go back to it now, I mean, we've come so far. I think this one was red, and then, okay. And yeah, it's just a little hard. You know, you jump on a Goomba and you hold the A button and you get this weird little bounce that you couldn't use to save yourself you know, getting over a pit, right? So you just feel less confident in those jumps, and it's just not as satisfying and as interesting. Oh, that was the thing I brought up that I thought was really interesting in the original test of this. Oh, was that a mistake? Oh, fuck me. But yeah, the idea that, like, oh, I guess that's another technical blemish on the idea that this is a casual run through, is the idea that when you hold the A button, you jump higher off of enemies. Boop, like that. And then, yeah, hopefully you don't fucking jump into the next guy immediately after, but that, yeah, one of the reasons that I feel like is another core pillar of the modern Mario experience. It gives this new dimension of variability to each enemy encounter, right? So that when you jump on one, you know, it's not just a foregone conclusion of like, this is the trajectory you're gonna afterwards. You get to make a decision, right? Do you want to do a little jump just to get to the next other guy? Or do you want to give yourself a big jump and try and time like actually precisely landing on something else? And that turns, you know, each enemy, you know, you get a new choice to make and a new kind of variability to experience with every enemy. That's one of those kind of like fundamentally transformative, like foundational changes that makes the whole thing more interesting. Not even just because, am I supposed to go down this red one? It might be the blue one, actually. I think one of the core elements of like Super Mario Bros gameplay design, like the reason that these games are fun is because you are made to execute a wide variety of different jumps throughout an experience, right? You're supposed to calculate angle and speed and how long you're holding the button down for, and the positions of enemies and the timing of obstacles. And all those different things just create, fuck me, different scenarios for your brain to work over, you know, for the folds of your brain to pour over and be like, how did I do it last time? Or, oh, is this a new experience? How am I going to approach this carefully? Or, you know, like, I don't know, how has my playstyle changed over time as I've gotten more confident or more familiar with the game? I think it's the blue one, actually. Hell yeah, I think. I don't know. Yeah, you know, when you boil it down, I think that's kind of what the core fun is. And so it's a kind of a logical conclusion that implementing some of that variability into the enemies themselves, like essentially turning each enemy into a new kind of jump, right, that you get after the fact. Not only a jump leading in, but the resulting jump coming out is, you know, it really makes it a more varied and interesting experience. Are there no power-ups in this entire level? Because I am a little wary about my odds against Bowser in this specific arrangements of obstacles that he's got for me. He's got at the end for me there. I mean, it's not even a guarantee that I get those guys. Okay, fuck me. Don't stand over here. Fucking shits. Oh! We're good. See, and I described it as janky earlier because it is just kind of random movement back and forth, right? It's not defined boss patterns. But at the same time, I guess they're, you know, it's not like they didn't do the most with what they had, right? They had Bowser in there, and they were like, okay, here's how his AI works. Where exactly can we place a platform, you know, to make it interesting? How often do we make him fire his fire breath? You know, does it move up or does it move down? You know, what does that force you to do as a player, right? Like, they worked within the bounds of what they had to make an interesting experience, and you can kind of tease that out as you play it and pour over it more. The readability of challenge, I think, is one of the biggest hurdles you kind of overcome going back to classic games after experiencing modern perspective, is like they are a lot less forthcoming with the information that will help you derive the most fun or interest from its challenges. You do kind of have to be a lot more explorative in that way, and open-minded and willing to work with the game over a period of time to kind of understand what makes it interesting and see like, oh, that's where that dev had a stroke of inspiration and decided to make the timing 2 seconds instead of 0.5 seconds, and that allows me to make this jump at this specific time, and now I see why this level is a masterpiece, yada yada. You hear about experiences from people long in the past, and you realize like, holy shit, we've basically been the same for the entire time that we've existed. It's that same kind of shit. You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and act like, you know, Super Mario isn't something that's worth experiencing if you're, you know, interested in having fun, having a fun time, playing a little jumpy game with a funny man, the mustache. I fucking love this credits theme, by the way. S&B Deluxe is, you know, not necessarily a fan of the way that Game Boy ports of NES games had to do so much screen crunching. I think it's probably, you know, objectively an inferior experience. But goddamn if someone didn't go crazy on that credits theme. This is cute. I probably should have paid a bit more attention during this, but it's not like the last time I'm gonna play this game, obviously. So yeah, that was fun. I don't know, it kind of ended anticlimactically because most of this was me just talking, but yeah, this was a really valuable modernization of a classic. It makes a lot of decisions that obviously I don't necessarily think Nintendo would have made themselves. In some ways that's a really good thing, and in some ways it's not quite as, maybe professional feels like an unfair word, but you know, just like consistent with Nintendo's internal design philosophies, you know. I don't expect any person who doesn't work there and actually gets trained in that culture to have such an intricate understanding as an actual Nintendo employee. But it's just, you know, the fan game experience. It has its own art to it in that way as well, right? When you get something that's kind of shoddy and a little put together. Not that this is necessarily anything like that. This is definitely really kind of top tier in terms of quality, I think. I had a good time with this. What's special? I do want to see what special is. We're gonna play as Luigi. Oh, they gave him a little. He's got a weak chin. His nose looks so much bigger. Is that the fucking actual sprite from Super Mario Maker? Okay, that looks a little more. He's funny looking now. I love Luigi. I'm not noticing much different to begin with here. Is this? Okay, so that's new. I might just not know the original game enough to be noticing what the differences are, but I was curious. Yeah, okay, Luigi. Go down your little... I had fun, and I think I'll try and do this again sometime.